What's up, everybody? It's the Crypto Ginger here. Just wanted to briefly go over a particular article that I found very interesting, and also something that inevitably led me on this particular breadcrumb trail to see this bigger picture as to what Ripple, the company, is actually trying to accomplish on a global scale, not just with the crypto, but of course blockchain as well. Now, it all started with this article called "Finance Firms Need to Replace IT Infrastructure to Adopt Blockchain and Crypto." So when I first started reading into it, it just talked about a blockchain conference called ScotChain 18 that happened to be in Edinburgh just recently here. And of course, there were some pretty big names at this conference and representatives of these companies, such as Deloitte, which we've talked about on this channel. Of course, I would highly suggest, if you're unfamiliar with Deloitte, go check out some of my videos where I talk about how they're connected to Ripple, the company, and what they're trying to accomplish together. However, going back into this article here, some of the representatives of these bigger name companies were at this blockchain event, did happen to speak on behalf of blockchain technology impacting businesses and commerce. And there were representatives such as Jeremy Drain of Libra, who stated outright that there's an assumption by some companies that their current infrastructure will accept crypto and blockchain. He then goes to state that because of the firm's data being too different, their systems would not actually be able to work with any blockchain or crypto technology coming through. So it would be inevitable for these companies to have to absolutely replace their IT infrastructure to be able to accept and adopt, again, blockchain and cryptocurrency. So that seems to be the primary focus of this particular event, how they were just encouraging any company that was there to look into the idea of, changing and replacing their IT infrastructure when it comes time to do so. Now, as I go further into this article here, it led me to a bit more of some of this kind of blockchain technology integration with a company called Fujitsu and their announcement to plan to build a blockchain-based interbank settlement platform as part of a joint project with 9 domestic banks. The article then goes to state that the project aims to confirm the viability of blockchain technology and will use an unnamed digital currency to make settlements. Now, I don't know what this unnamed digital currency is, and of course, I would imagine due to non-disclosure agreements, they can't specify that outright to the public until it is absolutely time to. But I do find it very interesting that they are using a digital currency to make these settlements here. If you paid attention to any of the videos we ever talked about with Ripple and xRapid and dealing with cross-border payments and settlements, xRapid we know uses XRP. So again, I'm not going to make an assumption here as to what this unnamed digital currency is, but I'll let you guys explore that with your own particular theories. However, the breadcrumb trails kind of start with Fujitsu here and this particular announcement, and I just happened to stumble across a couple articles that go into a little bit more emphasis of this. So here we have an article dated October 29th, 2018, just about a couple weeks ago. This talks about IT firm Fujitsu builds blockchain settlement trial infrastructure for 9 Japanese banks. So again, this is simply talking a little bit more about that. Again, here it talks about that they will be using an unnamed digital currency. What I found interesting, though, is sections of this article emphasizing certain things here where it says, according to the release, Fujitsu will additionally leverage the P2P money transfer platform it developed in the fiscal year of 2017 with 3 major banks to generate the money transfer to other banks that will trigger interbank fund transfer settlement. Now, of course, what we have to keep in mind is stating that they will leverage their P2P transfer platform that they developed in 2017. So I wanted to know a little bit more about this particular development here that happened last year. And it just so happens that we see that this article was actually dated, I believe, last year. Yep, September 2017, talking about Fujitsu to trial blockchain tech with new banking partners. And of course, it goes to state here that with a new deal, Fujitsu will provide a blockchain platform built on the open source Hyperledger fabric code base, and the individual banks within the JBA, which is the, I believe that is the Japanese Bankers Association, Again, it says that the individual banks within the JBA's rank can use then to test various businesses' use cases. Now, of course, I was unfamiliar with this Hyperledger fabric, so I wanted to kind of look that up just as well to see what kind of connection that is and what it's all about here. And it says here on this is another article talking about Hyperledger's latest effort to quilt together blockchain networks. So inevitably, it just made me want to read more into this. So I found a part of this article that says, in 2016, Hyperledger began accepting proposals for code-based incubation and other core element technologies. And on July 11th, the project announced it was production-ready Hyperledger Fabric 1.0. The next iteration of progress for its community of software developers and their ongoing efforts to establish a new frontier for blockchain frameworks and platforms. The article then goes to state here that while value transfers are relatively easy in one country, or where senders or recipients have accounts on a common network or ledger, sending value to those different networks or ledgers has proven to be challenging and complex. Moreover, these connection rails often require manual use and are slow and expensive. In an effort to address these issues, Hyperledger, the company, has recently launched another project called Hyperledger Quilt that tethers the Interledger protocol. So Interledger protocol, we're going to get into that here because there is a big connection with that and Ripple. Of course, what I wanted to quickly go over here, though, was this idea as to what is the Hyperledger Quilt. So I found this particular article on hyperledger.org, their actual site. Hyperledger Quilt offers interoperability between ledger systems by implementing ILP, the Interledger protocol, which is primarily a payments protocol and is designed to transfer value across systems, both distributed ledgers and non-distributed ledgers. It is a simple protocol that establishes a global namespace for accounts, as well as a protocol for synchronized atomic swaps between different systems. So again, it's something that's going to allow for multiple distributed ledgers and non-distributed ledgers across this vast open system here, and they're going to be able to transfer value against the, in this open system here of these particular distributed ledgers and non-distributed ledgers. So it's implementing, I should say, the Interledger protocol. Well, what is that? Let's go to ripple.com here and let's see. Ripple is thrilled to introduce the Interledger protocol for efficient payments across payments networks. Wow, so here's where the bigger connections take place with Ripple being part of this grander scale of Interledger protocol. And of course, when we go back to this, Hyperledger is to be using this particular Interledger protocol by implementing it into their system to help, again, reach out to more distributed ledgers and non-distributed ledgers. I do find that very fascinating here. So if we go a little bit further here in depth and we go to hyperledger.org, their site, I want to show you something here. This is a list of all of their members that they actually are dealing with. And as you can see, there's Fujitsu. We just talked about them. But look at these other names here that are members of Hyperledger. Again, what did Hyperledger just do with creating the Hyperledger Quilt? They integrated the Interledger protocol, which is Ripple's more or less protocol there. So Ripple really has a connection with a lot of companies. You can see JP Morgan there. And as well, who are some of the additional members here? These are general members. Well, if we scroll down here, there's a long list, but check this out. Who is that? Coil. We know who Coil is. And if we keep going, look at that. Deloitte. Wow. So again, major companies that are definitely connected here on a large scale. And these are a bunch of other companies that I am unfamiliar with. And I would imagine that if they're part of this particular Hyperledger member group and they're all wanting to be on board with the same kind of transfer of information and possibly even value, they would possibly be using the Interledger protocol, which is Ripple's protocol. But to just give a little bit more emphasis on this, when we scroll down, look at all of these names that are just simply members of the Hyperledger organization. You have R3, and then of course, look who we have, Ripple. We have other names that are actually bigger names just as well that I wanted to see. Oh, here we go, Swift, look at that. So again, a large amount of connections here when it comes to what Ripple has to offer just simply because of this Hyperledger. And one of the things I wanted to kind of end on here is something that David Schwartz has actually talked about quite a bit when it comes to the Interledger protocol. And he states, and this is an article that was done about 5 months ago, stating that Interledger protocol will become universal payments format. And I wanted to quickly talk about what he's saying here, because I think it's very important that we take this into consideration, especially since we just saw that huge member list there. He says, by connecting bank ledgers and existing infrastructures investments via the Interledger protocol, banks are taking the first steps in improving global payments today and enabling true Internet of value. That is something that Brad Garlinghouse has absolutely been trying to take care of and resolve, is that Internet of value. That's what they want to be known for, basically, Ripple the company. So of course, going a little bit further here, let's see. This is the part that I found very interesting. It says, Schwartz also believes that Ripple's product will lay the foundation for the next 50 years. He then goes to state here, this starts with providing technology that the current financial structure is comfortable with. Current blockchain technology that provides cryptographically secure transactions across a dispersed network of ledgers and integrates easily with existing systems. In the same way that the IP dug new plumbing for the internet, revamping global payments must start at the bottom infrastructure layer and move up from there. And something interesting that's specified here that I really want you guys to pay attention to, because I've talked about this even in, I believe, my last video about how banks could potentially go from Current, if they're using that, to wanting to integrate xRapid. And it's more or less talked about here. It says, Schwartz states that the next step after connecting these ledgers to allow the settlement using a digital asset on-demand liquidity. This takes the form of Ripple's xRapid solution. The solution will allow aforementioned banks to save time and money on cross-border payments, as seen by the results of recent xRapid pilots. So the idea is that once these companies are connected to this ledger and they would like to allow for settlements of digital assets on demand with liquidity, they will be using xRapid's solution there, because he is stating that it will take the form of Ripple's xRapid solution. So my guess is that this right here is going to be much bigger than we actually thought, and it will absolutely take some time to integrate, which would fall back onto what Brad Garlinghouse has said in the past, where he is expecting to have just simply dozens of banks integrating into, not just what RippleNet has to offer, but xRapid more specifically. My guess is that when it comes to topics such as Swift stating here, like this article, that they're not integrating with Ripple, doesn't even matter anymore. The fact that they are a member of the same Hyperledger group, which then could potentially be using the Interledger protocol from Ripple, which then could potentially be using xRapid, Swift will actually inadvertently be using xRapid just because of that Hyperledger protocol there. So I hope that this all made sense, and I was just trying to connect some dots here when it comes to these particular integrations. It will start off, I would imagine, very slow when it comes to any type of integration in this update and making a replacement of any type of IT infrastructure in companies, just so they can actually be a part of the same adopting phase of blockchain and cryptocurrencies that everybody else there will be. So again, I hope this right here isn't something that went too crazy on a tangent. I just wanted to connect some dots and show you all that Ripple has their hand in just about every part of the cryptocurrency facet that I could find so far when it comes to these major companies, these major players that could potentially be on board for cryptocurrency and blockchain. Outside of that, guys, let me know what you guys logically think about this here. If this is something that you feel is going to take place, and you know something else about this as well that I've missed, most certainly leave that in the comment section as well. I love the dialogue that you guys are creating, and it's very, very intellectual, and it's showing me a lot of information that I actually didn't know about as well. So again, leave your comments in the comment section there. Let me know what you think about this, and thank you for watching. Appreciate it. Bye-bye. And hey, if you enjoyed what you saw, please hit that like button. It definitely helps get this information out there to as many people as we possibly can. And also share this content out with everybody. And if you're new to this channel, please hit that subscribe button. This channel has been growing by leaps and bounds, and I could not have done it without you guys. If you really want to help this channel grow, please donate to my Patreon page. Even $1 a month would be amazing and would absolutely go right into my channel to make it more professional for you guys and allow me to create even more content. Thanks again for watching, guys, and have a wonderful day.